Hello all. So today let's look at TypeScript enums and a different approach to dealing with TypeScript enums called uh, const assertion. Let's look at how this works and why TypeScript enums might not be a best approach and what alternatives we have for that. So let me quickly create an enum. So let's do this like protocol, and this protocol can have, let's say, we can have HTTP, and we can give the value of HTTP, and then we can have another protocol. I mean, I'm making a syntactic error here. It should be equal to, yeah. So the next thing is like HTTPS, so that should be similarly HTTPS. And then let's make something called WS, which is for WebSockets. This could be anything. I'm just giving example here. Okay, so now we have an enum. Now let's write a method that just prints out what our protocol is, but we will use this enum as a type. Yeah, so let's write a function get protocol info, something like this, and this will be just a function. It returns nothing, but it takes in a protocol which is of type protocols. So we can use the enum as our type here. So that's the thing. So let's switch this. What are we going to do? We are going to switch the protocol, and if it's, let's say, protocol.http, protocols.http, then what we do is we just console log web insecure, something like this. Doesn't matter because it's just a demo code. Then we can go something like here. If it's protocols dot HTTPS, then what we can do is similar thing. We will just do what we have done here, but we know that HTTPS is secure, so we will just console log web secure. And then if it's WebSocket, let's also do that. Like if it's WebSocket, then okay, case protocols.WebSocket. Then what we would do is we will just console log as WebSocket protocol, something like this. And let's add a default just to make this complete. And we would add console log of unknown protocol. So this should be it. So now let's call this thing. So let me invoke this function. So this is my function, and I'm going to invoke it here. And I cannot pass any random thing because my type is of protocol. So I can, there's already this type card here. We are achieving that through the enum, because enum can also be used as a type. Yeah, so what I'm going to pass here is protocols.ws for just for an example. and we get this console logged. Now, one thing we can look at uh, what happens here is usually it's if we assign this, the member values like the const values in the enum as a string, then we notice a behavior. And let's look at that. Let me just console log the protocols. Yeah. So if we look at it, this is our TypeScript enum, which gets compiled into JavaScript as a normal object. So the one thing to note here is here we just have like any other object in JavaScript. We have key value pairs, and the interesting thing to note here is it's because we have assigned uh, string values to it. Now let me remove these string values and make TypeScript infer the value. So if I do this, then TypeScript automatically infers numeric values starting from 0, like HTTP equals 0, this has 1, and WebSocket equals 2. So now let's inspect how the compiled JavaScript output looks like. So now it's a bidirectional object. We have the numeric indices mapped to the keys here, and then the keys again being mapped to the numeric indices. Like it's a bidirectional map. So this is like an inconsistent behavior with enums. This is one of the reasons why we might be better off not to use enums, but we can achieve the same output with something else, like let's say a const assertion. But just to make sure that this thing still works, I'll just get this thing. Yeah, this still works even with the numeric value. Okay, so let's now refactor our code and let's use const assertions. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is const protocols, and how would I use a const assertion is with the keyword as const. So now it becomes a tuple. One thing I have to do is add this thing, and now since it's like a normal object, and so let me add these values to these like a key value pair as in any other uh, object. Yeah, so now this, I have created a tuple like this, so that we have specific narrowed down key value pairs. Like the keys can only be HTTP, HTTPS, and WS, and the values can only be 0, 1, and 2. So now let's look at one more problem here, which is like we can no longer use it as a type, because with enums we were able to use it as a type, but now that's no longer possible. But we can fix that. Let's do that. So first thing is we have to derive the value type, like how are we using this here, how are we using this type here. So this invocation will have a value. For example, if it's WS, then it should be 2. So the invocation can pass in values that are either, I mean, it can be anything between 0 and 2, including both extremes. So it can be 0, it can be 1, or it can be 2 and nothing else. So let's create a type from this const assertion. So let me call the type as protocols. So I can give the same name because this is a type, whereas the other one is more like a value. It's a constant, so I can use it. Now what I wanted to get is like type of protocols. If I do this, I would get this, but what I want is the narrowed down values of it, like 0, 1, and 2. So that's the one I want to derive from there. So let me do that. So it's type of protocols and then key of type of protocols. So let me do this. Now, once I do this, you can see here that the values are narrowed down. Now it can have either 0, 1, or 2, nothing else. So now we have also fixed the type compiler issue that was pointing here. Now let's first look at what this is. So it's a normal object like any other object. So we have solved that issue. Now even with a numeric value, we won't get this bidirectional object. So we have this consistent behavior. If we assign string, even then it's going to stay the same. Like, let me put something like HTTP and then HTTPS and then here web sockets. So now even now the behavior is the same for both string and numbers, because earlier with enums we saw that when we assign numbers we got that bidirectional object, but with this approach it's the same irrespective of what kind of value we give here, string or numeric doesn't matter. And the thing is now the types would also get updated when we update the const assertion. Yeah, and we don't have to do much about it here. Yeah. So let me bring that back and bring the numeric thing back, and I'll comment it out and let's see how it works. So this thing still continues to work. Let me try to give in a different value, let's say 3. Now it gives me that argument of type 3 is not assignable to parameter of type protocols because it only accepts 0, 1, and 2. Let me give it a value of 1 and it should work. Yeah. So this is how, this is an alternative for using enums, and this is more predictable and consistent. And the compiled output is consistent. It's not a bidirectional object when we use numeric values, unlike in enums. So yeah, this is pretty much it. If you want to derive the keys as a type, as a narrowed down type, then you can do that by let me put like protocol keys for now. Just I'm giving them a name. It doesn't matter. You can give whatever key name that feels appropriate here. So what I would do is I'll just type in key of type of protocols. And when I do this, I get the keys as type here. And this one gives us the values as types. So this is how we could do it. In our example, we don't really need this type because we are only dependent on the value. Our logic only depends on the value. So another thing, if you feel a bit fancy about doing this, you can even use something like a generic type by using TypeScript generics. So something uh, like value type. So I can use it as a generic here. And so what I would be passing is the type of as the generic. So what I would be doing is t of key of t. So I can do this, And here what I would do is just get the value type and then pass the generic as this thing like a type of protocols. And if I do that, I'll achieve the same thing, but now through a generic type. And this generic type we can use for another const assertion if we create one in our code base. This will be a reusable thing. Yeah. So this is just what I wanted to share with you all today. If you find this useful, please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you all in my next video. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.